Okay, everyone. So welcome back, and let us carry on where we left off. We were just looking at the idea that is found in many of the ancient texts in India, that the rivers, when they come to the great ocean, they kind of merge into the ocean, and they all become one. And in the Buddha's dispensation, the Buddha's teaching, this means that when you become a monastic, no one is really differentiated anymore. You stop differentiating people according to name and status and clan and background and all of these kind of things. Instead, you become a disciple of the Buddha, a Sakya Puta or a Sakya Samana. Actually, I should look up what the Pali word is here. I don't know if you are interested in Pali words, but if you are, this is your great opportunity. Samana Sakyaputa. Okay, so they are the Sakyan, sons of the Sakyan, the ascetics who are the sons of the Sakyan. So I hope that you met with delight when I mentioned that. So you are happy about that. It's good to know some Pali words. Some of the Pali words are very beautiful. They have a lot of meaning to them. And if you understand some of the Pali words, it's like you get closer to the Buddha in many ways. It's the Buddha's language, the way he expressed himself. And very often these words don't have a real counterpart in English. Like the idea of the samana is an ascetic, is someone who goes forth, who disappears into the forest, who follows the spiritual path. We don't really have a kind of proper word for that in English. An ascetic, maybe it's kind of close, but not quite, because they're not necessarily ascetic. They're all kind of samanas. Ascetics, you have a feeling of someone who's tormenting themselves a bit, but that is not the point, of course, here with these things. So these are the ascetics who are the sons and the daughters also, of course, Sakyaputa, of the Sakyan. The Sakyan is the Buddha, basically. And so you go forth, you lose that sense of division. And there's something very beautiful about that, something very powerful. We use our lives, we divide people up according to, what we consider more or less prestige, and then we maybe discriminate against people on that basis and all of these kind of things. If you're in the right position, you get privileges that other people don't. This is just everywhere around the world. And it is kind of not very nice. So the Buddha tried to eliminate that, especially in the Sangha, not so much in society. The Buddha was not really a social reformer. The Buddha was someone who wanted to make the spiritual path available to everyone, and then therefore treat everyone the same. So everyone had realistically the same opportunities to practice a spiritual life. So it is a nice ideal, and I think we try to live up to that in the monastic life, at least at Bodhidharma Monastery. I'm not sure if it is some other places it might be slightly different, but it is an ideal that I think we try to uphold, and I think we do uphold fairly well. So then we come to the next of these 8 qualities. For all the world's streams that reach it and the rain that falls from the sky, the ocean never empties or fills up. In the same way, though several mendicants become fully extinguished through the element of extinguishment with nothing left over, the element of extinguishment never empties or fills up. This is the 5th thing the mendicants love about this teaching and training here. The element of extinguishment is the Nibbana Dhatu, and that is really refers to, when you kind of eventually, when the Arahant dies or whatever, you kind of get fully extinguished. That's kind of the Nibbana Dhatu. It can also just mean the Arahant in living life as well, but usually refers to like what happens when the Arahant dies. So what is that Nibbana Dhatu? Here translated as element Dhatu. Dhatu can also mean a relic of the Buddha. So it's called a Dhatu very often. So in that sense, it's a bit like an element. But these words are again, remember we're dealing with different languages. And when we deal with different languages, often there isn't a one-to-one translation that is acceptable in all contexts. And this is also true here. So here, dhatu means more like the property of extinguishment. It is a property. It is something that happens. It is an extinguishment. How can extinguishment be an element? It's kind of weird. Extinguishment is an element. What about renunciation? Is also called the dhatu. Is renunciation an element? You can't really, it's not tangible, renunciation. It's not something you can say, oh, look, there's the renunciation is over there. Maybe you can point to Ananda and say, there's a renunciation over there. But you cannot really point to it because it is a property of the mind, the idea of renunciation. And so sometimes the word property is a better word than the word element. Element gives a very sense of concrete existence of something, but that is not really what is going on here. So the element of extinguishment. And that element, if someone attains parinibbana, does that element then expand because someone else enters the element or enters that property or whatever? And then when someone finally, maybe at some point, someone stops being in nibbana, maybe they come back to samsara again. I don't know. That would be terrible, wouldn't it? If you make it out and then suddenly you come back again. But that's the point. If you still have a personality, if you still are somebody, you would expect that you can move in different directions, right? That's the problem with having a remnant of personality, because personalities then move on. And so if you still have that personality, maybe you can kind of come out of nibbana, back to Jhana Grove. Meditating again, all over. What a terrible thing that would be, finally out of this. So the point about nibbana is it is like a one-way street. If you find the highest happiness, you might as well stay there. No point in coming back from the highest happiness. Nibbanang paramang sukhang, the nibbana is the supreme happiness. And so this is counter to the idea. If you get reborn in the heavenly realm, then you are expanding the heavenly realm. There's more devas in the heavenly realm, so that realm expands, and then you die from there, it gets less. But nibbana is fundamentally different. There is no swelling, there is no expansion. It's a different way of thinking about the world than many other philosophies or religions or spiritual paths, how they would have it. So then we come to the next one, and the next one is the reason why I chose this sutta. The next one is the one that has to do with freedom. It's a beautiful saying that you may have probably heard many times before. And the ocean has just one taste, the taste of salt. In the same way, the teaching and training has one taste, the taste of freedom. This is the sixth thing that the mendicants love about this teaching and training. The Dhamma and the Vinaya of the Buddha have only one taste, the taste of freedom. It's such a great saying. It's such a powerful thing. It's kind of few things in the suttas that really stand out, like very short things that kind of have a very powerful emotional pull. Are emotionally very meaningful. They mean something to us because we understand freedom intuitively. Everyone wants to be free. And the problem is that we often choose the wrong kinds of freedom. The freedoms that are no freedoms at all. The freedoms that actually sometimes imprison us. We think they are freedoms. The freedom to eat whatever you want. Yay, I can eat whatever I want. Okay, big deal, right? You can choose the apple or orange for breakfast. It's not going to make a massive difference for you. It's a tiny kind of freedom. But these are, so the spiritual path, and very counterintuitively, the whole path, everything about the Dhamma has this sense of freedom about it. And I mentioned this briefly yesterday. You start out on the path, you start out maybe with being generous. And please practice generosity also here on this retreat when you can. In small little ways. You can hold the door open for somebody. Somebody held the door open for me already. It kind of happens straight away. And sometimes people stand out there, they wait, they can sometimes they see me coming and they wait for me and they hold the door open. Isn't that kind of cute? That's really cute. And if I get a chance, I'll hold the door open for you as well. But little things, we just treat people with kindness, with care. We can be kind and generous even when we are completely silent. It's possible to do these things. And that there is a sense of freedom in that. I'll come back to this idea of freedom in generosity, but there's a freedom of letting go of something that you take to be yourself. When you let go of something that you always attach to, always cling to, the moment of letting go is a moment of freedom. And so if you are kind and generous, feel what that feels like. When you come in here and you sit in meditation, make that meditation an offering, an act of generosity to all the people in your life. Yeah, everyone who is here, your family, your friends, in fact the whole world. I'm doing this. This is not a selfish thing at all. I'm doing this also for the benefit of the whole world. That's really powerful. You're bringing in the idea of generosity into your meditation. And if you bring in that mentality in your meditation, because it is a mentality of freedom, because there is a mentality of renunciation, of giving up, it will aid you in your meditation because your mind is already leaning in the right direction, inclining in the right way. And that's what's happening there. So you can see how you can use these things throughout your spiritual path. Then you have the idea of kindness, of sila, of virtue, morality, whatever. That is also a kind of freedom. If you see what's going on in your mind, when you overcome the tendency to do something negative, you do something positive instead, actually that's a liberation. You're freeing your mind from an oppressive force. The opposite of freedom is being oppressed. The opposite of freedom is being enslaved. The opposite of freedom is being imprisoned. Freedom is something beautiful. It opens up the mind. It opens up the inner world. Freedom outside is not so important, but freedom within, that is what we're looking at here. And so being kind opens up that freedom. Then the overcoming of all these negative forces or defilements of the mind, all the desires, the ill will, all the restlessness and all the negativities in the mind, these are also things that imprison you. In fact, the whole sensory world is a kind of prison because it limits and constrains the mind. We are constrained by the five senses, and sometimes we don't know that until you go into a deeper state of meditation. Then you understand how constraining the five sense world is, because suddenly the mind kind of opens up and expands and encompasses the world and becomes bright and beautiful and brilliant and blissful and all of these things. And all of that was stopped by the five senses, basically. So the more you eliminate them, the more freedom you feel. It's the imprisonment of the world of the five senses. So you liberate yourself out. Then you enter the samadhi, where you found the very deep freedoms of the mind. In fact, these are the things that I mentioned yesterday. They're called vimokkha and vimutti in the suttas. These are core terminology that means freedom. And these are described in this way in the suttas. And then, of course, finally, you have the liberation that comes at the very end of the path, where you eliminate all these constraints once and for all, and you are liberated. The taste of the path, from the very beginning to the end, is one continuous journey towards deeper and deeper freedom. That is what the Dhamma is about. It's just really, there's something very, very attractive about that. Not just freedom, but happiness, but peace. All of these positive things coming together in one thing is kind of extraordinary. So that is the idea of freedom on the one hand, that it kind of follows the whole path. Another way to think about it is that no matter how you explain the path, if you explain it in terms of peace, happiness, or whatever, all of these things too include freedom within them. So if you experience happiness, you are free of suffering. That's a kind of freedom. Suffering is oppressive, right? You know, if you have a pain in the body, you can't get rid of it. It's oppressive. It oppresses you, and you want to get rid of it. You'll do anything to get rid of it. So that is a kind of. So happiness is a kind of freedom. Peace is a kind of freedom. You're free from the restlessness of the mind. Energy of the mind is a kind of freedom. You're free of the tiredness and sloth, the prison of tiredness and lethargy. Clarity of mind is a kind of freedom. It's a freedom from delusion and confusion and stupidity. So everything, all the ways we look at the path, from insight to peace, tranquility, all of these things are also freedom. There's another way of thinking about the idea of freedom. Everything is touched by this concept of freedom. Freedom is within everything. It's always there, no matter how you look at this path. So in this sense, great. So you can kind of measure yourself a little bit, knowing how your practice is going by seeing if you feel more free over time, you feel more liberated, you feel that something is happening within her. So this is the idea, has one taste, the taste of freedom. Whenever you get it right on this path, whenever you follow the teaching in the right way, you will experience a little bit of that taste of freedom. The ocean is full of many kinds of treasures, such as pearls, gems, beryl, conch, quartz, coral, silver, gold, rubies, and emeralds. In the same way, this teaching and training is full of many kinds of treasures, such as the 4 kinds of mindfulness meditation, the 4 right efforts, the 4 foundations of spiritual power or psychic power, if you wish, the 5 faculties, the 5 powers, the 7 awakening factors, and the Noble Eightfold Path. This is the 7th thing that the mendicants love about this teaching and training. So in the world, they have like treasures are kind of the small treasures of the world. They are the pearls and the gems and what have you. But the real gems in life are not those. Why are these things called gems? Why are these things called like things that you use for ornaments? And it's because they give you a little bit of happiness. But how much happiness do you get from having a gem? How much happiness do you get from kind of using some nice ornaments or whatever? A little bit, tiny miny. It's not kind of really, it doesn't matter all that much. And we all know that. And the real happiness, the real gems, the triple gem, is of course the Dhamma and the Buddha and the Sangha, where you find these liberations, the freedoms, the happiness, all the positive things. Why? Because they give rise to large happiness. These are the real gems in the world. This is the real gold in the world. You know that famous sutta where the Buddha compares the mind to gold. It's like gold refining. The way you refine gold the way you refine the mind is similar to the way you refine gold. The mind is compared to gold. Why? Well, gold kind of gives you a bit of happiness, but the real gold is the bright and shining mind. That's what gives rise to real happiness. So all the gems in the world have a kind of counterpart in the Dhamma, in the teachings of the Buddha. And these are the counterparts right here. The 4 kinds of mindfulness meditation, the 4 satipatthanas. These are, basically this is how you practice meditation, really, starting from the moment you sit down until you achieve jhanas and you achieve deep samadhi. These are the real gems. Why? Because they give rise to real profound happiness. So these sets that you see here, these are known as the 37 Bodhipakkhya Dhammas, the 37 aids to awakening. And they may seem a bit random, the right efforts, the mindfulness meditation, the basis for spiritual power, faculties, 7 awakening factors, and the Noble Eightfold Path. But they really are just Noble Eightfold Path from kind of, they all fit into the Noble Eightfold Path. They are looking at the Noble Eightfold Path in different details, from different vantage points and all of that. And so they expand a bit and contract a bit and all of these kind of things. That's what these 37 are. Just very briefly to give you an idea. So the 4 kinds of mindfulness meditation, well, that's the same as sammasati. So those 4 go into sammasati, the 7th factor of the Noble Eightfold Path, right mindfulness. That's what they are. The 4 right efforts, they are samma vayama or sammapadana, the 2 words for that right effort. And that is the 6th factor of the Noble Eightfold Path, right effort, they fit in there. The 4 foundations of spiritual power, the iddhipadas, they are a bit more complicated. They have to do with effort, sati, and samadhi, with the last 3 factors of the Noble Eightfold Path. They are like an alternative view of the last 3 factors of the Noble Eightfold Path. The 5 spiritual faculties and the 5 powers, they are basically the same, and they are the Noble Eightfold Path viewed from the point of the Aryans. When you become an Arya, you have these 5 faculties, so from that point of view. The 7 awakening factors are an expansion of the last 2 factors of the Noble Eightfold Path. It starts with the Sati Sambojjhanga, the awakening factor of mindfulness, and ends with the Upekkha Sambojjhanga, which is the end of the 4th jhana. So they're an expansion of that. And then you have the Noble Eightfold Path. 37 Bodhipakkhya Dhammas. I promise you there will be no test at the end of the retreat, so you can relax. You don't have to remember any of these Pali words, but it's kind of nice to hear. I don't know, I always enjoy hearing a little bit of Pali, as long as you can understand what I say. If you can't understand what I say, please write a note this evening and tell me off for using too many Pali words. Yeah, I can deal with it. I'll be all right. And so then what is interesting about these 37, if you look at them and you kind of categorize these 37, you put them into categories, various kinds of factors, you find that they predominantly are about three things: right effort, right mindfulness, and right stillness, or right samadhi. Yeah, the last three factors of the Noble Eightfold Path. 24 of the 37, I think, I can't remember exactly, I think it's about 24 of the 37 are about those last three factors. And of course, those last three factors are really about the cultivation of the mind. Right effort, how to use your mind in a good way, in daily life, also in meditation. Right mindfulness, all about meditation practice. Right stillness, all about achieving the deep meditations. So it's all about cultivation of mind. And it says something about the Dhamma. A lot of it is cultivation of mind, but not just sitting meditation, but also cultivation in daily life. Sense restraint, mindfulness and clear comprehension or situational awareness, sati, sampajanya, etc. This is also a big part of it. So these are the real gems in the world. Why? Because they give you the highest that any human being can ever possibly achieve. Highest happiness is available through this. That's why they are the highest gems. Okay, let's go to the last one. Many great beings live in the ocean, such as the Leviathans, the Leviathan gulpers, the Leviathan gulpers, the demons, the dragons, and the fairies. In the ocean there are life forms 100 leagues long, or even 200, 300, 400, 500 leagues long. In the same way, great beings live in this teaching and training. And these are those beings, the stream enterers and the one practicing to realize the fruit of stream entry, the once returner and the one practicing to realize the fruit of once return, the non-returner and the one practicing to realize the fruit of non-return, the perfected one and the one practicing for perfection. This is the eighth thing the mendicants love about this teaching and training. So you can see here that these are the 8 kinds of Aryans, the noble ones. And you can see, according to this, they're supposed to be very large, hundreds of leagues long. So if you see Ajahn Brahmali expanding a bit, you shouldn't be too surprised. You can see the connection there. So you can tell from the outside, you can tell whether someone is an Aryan or not. If they're really expanding, if they're 100 leagues long, then you know that they are on the right track. Sorry, I just couldn't help myself. So so these are the great beings in the world. These are kind of the powerful beings, the ones that we should really kind of look out for. These are the things that really matter in the world. These noble ones. Why? Because they understand the Dhamma. And because they understand the Dhamma, they have the ability to carry it on, bring it forward, bring it on to the next generations. And that is kind of the point here with these beings. Often we get it completely wrong. We don't understand the beings that are really worthy of support and worthy of respect. We get these things very, very wrong very often. And so this is really worthwhile remembering here. So these are the 8 kinds of areas. So I don't think I will go into any detail about that. The point about these areas is simply that they have had insight into the Dhamma, the teachings of the Buddha, so they have personal experience of what the Dhamma is. All of these are called ditti patto, attained to view. In other words, they have right view. Right view is embedded in these people, and whether they want to or not, they will have to follow that right view. And of course, you want to. Right view is obviously beneficial, because if you have wrong view, you end up doing silly things, because wrong view leads you in the wrong direction. Seeing these 8 incredible and amazing things, Paharada, the mendicants love this teaching and training here. So there you are. So maybe I should just say a little bit more about the last one, because it is a very interesting one, the one about the Aryas and the noble ones. Very often in the Dhamma we talk about the idea of Kalyana Mittas, good spiritual friends. And the idea here is that a good spiritual friend is someone who leads you in the right direction. Someone who kind of doesn't block you from going towards the Dhamma, someone who has an understanding of the teaching, someone who is themselves a good example for how to live this life, someone in whose presence you feel that you are kind of heading in the right way yourself. That's the idea of Kalyana Mitta. And the real Kalyana Mittas are the Aryas. They are the Aryas because they are fundamentally different from ordinary people. They see the world in a fundamentally different way. And without these Aryas, basically there is no progress on the spiritual path. It is one of those very interesting things that you find in the suttas. There is a very well-known way that the suttas or the Dhamma is expressed, called the gradual training, that you find in many, many places in the suttas. And the beginning of the gradual training, you might think the beginning is to hear the word of the Buddha or something. Maybe that's what it is. Or maybe it's just becoming more mindful, having more sila, or being less silly, or kind of hanging out. It's kind of interesting. What is the beginning of the gradual training again? Can you remember? Ananda, you can't say anything because I know you know already. And my fellow monastics also are sworn to silence. So it's fascinating. What is the beginning of the gradual training? And the beginning of the gradual training is the arising of a Buddha in the world. And you might think, what's that got to do with the gradual training? Well, what it means is that there is no training without the arising of a Buddha. Someone has to first arise, then the training comes into existence. And that shows you the importance of the Kalyana Mitta. Nothing really happens without those Kalyana Mittas. And the problem so you might think, in that case, I just become a Buddha. Well, the problem is there is no path to becoming a Buddha. It just happens at random. So good luck, yeah? You have to kind of win the massive lottery to become a Buddha. The chance of that is almost zero. It's as close to zero as you possibly can get. There's more chance of you becoming, I don't know what, president of the US, than there is chance of you becoming a Buddha in this world. So it's very, very important. It's very, very significant for this reason. And so for that reason, when we live the spiritual life, we try to advance on this path, we try to move forward. It is so important to try to find teachers who embody these teachings in the right way. It really matters a lot. And we have to have open eyes and open ears and evaluate what is going on, trying to see if the teachings we are given, whether they are congruent with the suttas. Read the suttas a little bit, because it gives you an idea of what to look for in this world. This is one of the things the suttas do for you. If someone says, don't read the suttas, suttas are, don't worry about that, I'll give you the real teaching, that's already a bit dodgy, right? One of the things I always found very powerful about Ajahn Brahmali was that he always said, well, take the Buddha as your final teacher. And I thought, wow, that is kind of an attitude that I really respect, because it is not about Ajahn Brahmali, it is not about individuals, it's about this teaching that is passed on throughout the centuries and millennia. So it matters a lot to have the right kind of teacher, someone you can feel you can trust, someone you know will not take advantage of you, someone who sometimes will challenge you. Remember, if someone always makes you feel at ease and, happy, whatever, maybe that's not so good. Why? Because someone who always makes you feel at ease and happy, maybe they just are too much of a crowd pleaser. I don't know. Maybe that's the part of it. A really good teacher should challenge you sometimes. Otherwise, you're not going to advance. And this is one of the things also which is kind of nice, at least to me. Ajahn Brahmali has always challenged me in so many ways. And I always thought that also is a good thing. So it's complicated, with someone. So you have to look very carefully, and you have to understand who is really worth following in the world. And you have to decide that for yourself. I might say something, but don't listen to what I have to say. You don't know what I know. You follow your own wisdom. Look carefully. Don't rely too much on other people, because basically Why are you going to rely on them? Well, that's your judgment. To rely on them, you might as well look directly here. Yeah, and this is how it works. So this actually matters. And too often in the world, if we choose a teacher too much out of need, there's always going to be some degree of need, but if we are too needy, then we may end up holding on to the wrong kind of teacher because of neediness, not because of wisdom. A little bit of neediness, everyone is a little bit needy because we all need things to support us. The idea that there are people who are completely without needs is ridiculous. Of course, everyone is a little bit needy, but we shouldn't overdo the neediness. We need to find that middle way, and using wisdom at the same time. So anyway, so those are the areas. So now let us move on to the next sutta, which is it's a very simple sutta. There's not all that much to say about it. So we're just going to go through it fairly quickly, I think. This is in the numerical discourses also, Anguttara Nikaya. AN stands for Anguttara Nikaya, translated as numerical discourses. Chapter 10, the tens, sutta number 94, 94th discourse. So at one time, the Buddha was staying near Champa on the banks of the Gaggara lotus pond. Then the householder Vajramahita left Savatthi in the middle of the day to see the Buddha. Then it occurred to him, it is the wrong time to see the Buddha, as he is in retreat, and it's the wrong time to see the esteemed mendicants, as they are also in retreat. Why don't I visit the monastery of the wanderers of other religions? This was a common thing to do, and you see monks do this all the time. The Buddha does it occasionally. They go to the wanderers of other religions to visit them in their monasteries, in their places. And the reason for that is because if someone is already a wanderer, then it might be worthwhile teaching them. Yeah, they might be open, they might be willing to listen to the Dhamma, and then they become good followers. If you're already a wanderer, you are already interested in spirituality, you're leaning in the right direction. It may just mean a little bit of correcting your view, and maybe you become a follower of the Buddha. And of course, that happens sometimes. Then he went to the monastery of the wanderers of other religions. Now at that time the wanderers of other religions had come together, making an uproar, a dreadful racket, as they sat and talked about all kinds of low topics. Every time in the suttas when a monk approaches, or the Buddha approaches the wanderers, there's always the same description, every time. So I think that it's maybe a little bit of Buddhist propaganda there, because so these wanderers, they seem very, very dodgy. They're always described in the same way. So, but no doubt, yeah, they were. India is a kind of a society where religious debate is very common, and I suspect that many of these wanderers probably were debaters. And if there are debaters, there will be people who shout on the outside and, egging on their favorite monk, or someone else egging on. So you can imagine it probably was quite noisy. So I think it's probably something to this. Yeah, it's not entirely wrong. Yeah. So. Anyway, so they saw Vajramahita coming off in the distance, and they stopped each other saying, "Be quiet, good fellows, don't make a sound. The householder Vajramahita, a disciple of the ascetic Gautama, is coming into our monastery here. He is included among the white-clothed lay disciples of the ascetic Gautama, who is residing near Champa. Such venerables like the quiet are educated to be quiet and praise the quiet. Hopefully, if he sees that our monastery is quiet, he will see fit to approach." So that's also interesting. Yeah, they have a sense of integrity about them. They want to have a good debate, a good discussion with someone they respect. And so you can see the positive side here as well. It's not all negative. You notice here how he is one of the white-clothed lay disciples. As you can see, if you go to traditional Buddhist countries in the present day, on the Uposatha days, the lay Buddhists will often wear white, and they will keep the 8 precepts. What does that Anyway, I'm not going to go there. Ajahn Brahm tells the story of sometimes you have the people, they keep the 13 precepts, yeah? It's 8 precepts in the morning, the 5 precepts in the afternoon. I like that one, it's kind of nice. It says something about human nature, yeah? And it's kind of sweet in a way of people. But, so white clothed, this is one of these things that goes back to the time of the Buddha. And I always say that when you read the suttas carefully, you see these little things in the suttas, how so many of the modern ways of doing things are found in the suttas. Yeah, they are there. You go to a Buddhist country, you see the Buddhist customs, actually goes back to the suttas. Sometimes it goes back beyond the suttas, prior to the suttas. It's part of the Indian kind of cultural sphere. And, this is kind of what we have Buddhists have taken on around the world. So that's kind of interesting. It connects us to the Buddha a little bit, yeah? So that's kind of really nice. So in our monastery, if you see our anagarikas, they usually wear white, yeah, because they are lay people committed to the Dhamma. And sometimes what happens in the monastery is that they wear white, and then over time the whites get dirtier and dirtier and dirtier, and when they are completely brown, it's time to ordain them. That's how it works. So that's kind of how it works. Actually, it doesn't work like that, because they have this super duper washing powder, yeah, nappy clean or something like that they use to keep their whites white. Okay, anyway, so he comes and they like quiet, right? So quiet was one of the qualities of the good followers of the Buddha in those days. Residing near Champa is, we're now in the eastern part, close to the Bangladeshi border, that's where Champa is. Then those wanderers of other religions felt silent. Then Vajramahita went up to them and exchanged greetings with the wanderers there. When the greetings and polite conversation were over, he sat down to one side, and the wanderers said this. Yeah, you always have greetings and polite conversation. It's kind of nice, isn't it? You treat each other well, you kind of relax, you settle down. The Buddha always does this, the monks always do this to start off. So it always is that kind of friendly greeting here. And my guess is that Lehar did that with you when you all came here. She had the polite greetings and polite conversation. The wanderer said to him, "Is it really true, householder? Does the ascetic Gautama criticize all forms of mortification? Does he categorically condemn and denounce those fervent mortifiers who live rough?" So mortification here is tapas, and tapas basically is asceticism. Does he criticize all forms of asceticism? I think would have been a better word. Mortification is a very old-fashioned word, but it basically means asceticism. Does he criticize and condemn all the ascetics who live rough? Yeah, this is the question here. And so then what does he reply? What do you think? Does the Buddha criticize all forms of asceticism? That's a good question. Yeah. I wonder, what is he going to say? I don't know if you have read on already. If you read on, you can't answer this question. What does he say? Does he do that? And of course, not really. Yeah, this is what you will see in a second. No, sirs, the Buddha does not criticize all forms of mortification or asceticism, nor does he categorically condemn and denounce those fervent ascetics who live rough. The Buddha criticizes where it is due and praises where it is due. In doing so, he is one who speaks after analyzing the question. He is not one-sided on this point. And he speaks after analyzing the question. He is called a vibhajjavadin, vibhajjavado. And this is one of the words that is used sometimes to describe the Dhamma, vibhajjavado, the doctrine of discrimination or analysis. You analyze things. Very few things are one-sided. Yeah, there are some things that are one-sided, but it's not so many. Things are usually nuanced. It depends on why you do them. Where are you coming from? What is your intention? What is your motivation? It comes back to these things all the time. And it's very rare that you can say, absolute things about things. Yeah, even asceticism. There are some kinds of asceticism that is good, like not eating in the afternoon is good when you are on a meditation retreat, and there is a little bit of asceticism in that. Are you holding up okay? Yeah. Yeah, actually, only yesterday, it's only Saturday. Yesterday you had some supper, so it shouldn't be. So today is the challenge, right? So I'll ask you again tomorrow. See how you are, and if you look a bit pale and a bit thin, we'll give you some extra metta during the meditation later on. So so the Buddha is a Vibhajavadin, and in fact, this. A number of schools became known as the Vibhajavadins because they were the schools of analysis. A group of schools were called this, including here the Theravadins as well. So the Buddha analyzes things. This is kind of what he became famous for. So then those wanderers, what do they say? They say, hold on, householder, the ascetic Gautama, who you praise, is an exterminator who refrains from making statements. On this point also, I reasonably respond to the venerables. The Buddha has stated, this is skillful, this is unskillful. So when it comes to what is skillful and unskillful, the Buddha makes a statement. He is not an exterminator who refrains from making statements. Elsewhere, the Buddha says that he is an exterminator, but he is an exterminator of what? Of defilements. Yeah, that's kind of what exterminator is. He's not an exterminator of beings. That's kind of the important point here. So we are here to exterminate negative qualities. Yeah, and what happens when you exterminate negative qualities? The good qualities come forth. They arise to the surface, and they become what is the only thing that remains. So that's kind of the advantage of exterminating the negative qualities. It's not like you exterminate the negative qualities and everything becomes bland and boring. Not at all. If you exterminate them, you feel all the good ones instead, because they take the place of the negative ones. When this was said, those wanderers sat silent, dismayed, shoulders drooping, downcast, depressed, with nothing to say. Saying this, Vajramahita got up from his seat. He went to the Buddha, bowed, sat down to one side, and informed the Buddha of all that they had discussed. Good, householder, that is how you should legitimately and completely refute those futile men from time to time. Householder, I don't say that all asceticism should be undergone, but I don't say that no asceticism should be undergone. I don't say that all observances should be undertaken, nor do I say that no observances should be undertaken. I don't say that all efforts should be tried, nor do I say that no efforts should be tried. I don't say that everything should be given up, nor do I say that nothing should be given up. I don't say that you should be liberated with all kinds of freedom, but nor do I say you should not be liberated with any kinds of freedom. And the last sentence there is I think, the reason why I chose this sutta, because it had freedom in it. So sometimes I had to kind of look at some of the unusual suttas. And this retreat, I'm doing quite a lot of suttas that you've never heard before, just to kind of have a kind of slightly different angle on the Dhamma. The content is always the same in these retreats, but the number on top of the sutta is a bit different. So all of these things, the Buddha says, I don't say you should always make effort, nor do I say you should never make effort. Yes, there is a right time to make effort, and there is a wrong time to make effort. The same thing with observances, the same thing with asceticism, the same thing with giving things up, the same thing with freedom. So how do we decide when? That becomes like the important question, right? If sometimes you should make an effort, sometimes you should not. When should you make an effort? When should you be ascetic? What is the right answer to that? And the right answer is, for all of these things, whenever something leads to good qualities in you, good qualities increasing and the bad qualities going down, then you should do it. If something leads to bad qualities increasing and good qualities going down, you should definitely not do it. And if it is kind of neutral, then you can, if you maybe you can, yeah, it depends a bit on the circumstances. So this is the basic idea. What is it that's going to make you a better person, basically? More good qualities, fewer bad ones. That is the measure you use to decide what you should do. And this is, you should do that for everything in your life. The Buddha elsewhere talks about this in respect of absolutely everything. Every little decision you make can be made with this as the background, as a decision-making kind of overview, yeah, or map of decision-making that gives you kind of one beautiful way of thinking about decisions. And so this is very, very interesting from that point of view. And the main thing here is the one about freedom. Yeah, some freedoms you should pursue, other freedoms you should not pursue. What are the freedoms you should not pursue? Well, they are the kind of stupid freedoms in the world. Yeah, the freedoms of being, indulging, for example, excessively in sensual pleasures. Yeah, this is a kind of freedom that is useless. The freedom of being immoral. That is a freedom that is not only useless, but it actually leads to an anti-freedom. It leads to imprisonment of the mind. So you have a superficial freedom, but it actually leads to imprisonment down the track. And so many of the worldly freedoms in the world, when they are pursued in the wrong way, they lead the wrong way and they lead actually to imprisonment. Superficially, they are freeing. In a deeper sense, they imprison you. And this is very interesting. And the whole five sense realm is ultimately that kind of prison. If you pursue things that attach you to the five sense realm, and almost everything we do in our life are about that. Yeah, they are about things in the five sense realm, things we hold on to, things that we grasp. And some of those things are incredibly important to us. And it's very hard sometimes to know how we can give these things up. Yeah, things like relationships also are in that realm. And as human beings, we have to have relationships of one kind or another. Yeah, one of the most important things for human beings to thrive is to have good connections to other people. Without those connections, actually life becomes really, really miserable. So some kind of connections we need, but on the other hand, we don't want to be too attached and hold on too much. And then we kind of emerge gradually, stage by stage, from that five sense realm. And if you have a little bit of success in your meditation on this retreat, it means that you are emerging a little bit from that realm. Every time you become a little bit peaceful, every time you enjoy a bit of joy or happiness in your meditation, it is because you are letting go a little bit of that five sense realm. Notice that. Yeah, please notice that. Wow, I feel peaceful. Yeah, well, this is so nice. Now suddenly something worked. Yeah, sometimes you don't really know exactly what it is that worked, but something worked, and you feel peaceful. The mind settles down. And the reason why that happened is because you let go of something, and mostly it has to do with the five sense realm. So understand how beautiful that is. And when you understand how beautiful it is, then it doesn't become so scary to let go of that realm, because you see, actually, it is very, very attractive to let go a little bit. Okay, you come back again afterwards anyway, yeah? But you understand a little bit more about what is really worthwhile in the world, where the true freedom is to be found. And this does not mean that we reject the five sense world. Actually, that's the wrong way of thinking about it. What it means is that you practice on the spiritual path and you start to understand things. And when you understand things, this division, the movement towards and away from certain things and towards other things, towards meditation and peace and spiritual, is almost automatic. Yes, you reflect on it, yes, you try to understand, but there's also a certain automaticness to this whole process. It happens, and then it doesn't become so frightening. It's not as if you have to reject everything you love in the world, because that is scary. We can't really do that. So look out for the right kind of freedom. Yeah, the freedom where the mind is peaceful, where you go inward, where the world starts to fade away a little bit, and just experience that, feel it, feel what is happening, build up that refuge inside of you, whereby what happens in the world is no longer so important to you. It's very, very beautiful and powerful and delightful and inspiring and marvelous and splendid, and etc., etc. So please head in that direction there. So these are the various things where the Buddha is not one-sided. Yeah. Then he carries on, and now he actually says exactly what I've been talking about just now. So we're just going to repeat that. So that's good. Repetition is always good, I reckon. When undergoing certain asceticism, unskillful qualities grow while skillful qualities decline. I say you should not undergo those kinds of asceticism. When undergoing certain asceticism, unskillful qualities decline while skillful qualities grow. I say you should undertake that kind of asceticism. Yeah? It's kind of obvious. So sometimes asceticism or mortification here means a little bit of relinquishment, a little bit of letting go, yeah, of not of seeing if you can live without that evening meal for 8 days, yeah. It's very impressive, actually. I have to say that so many people voluntarily come here to Jhana Grove and let go of the evening meal. Yeah, it's kind of really amazing. So well done, everyone, because it's not easy. I have been a monk for 30 years, so for me it's very easy. For me, the thought of an evening meal is actually getting a bit repulsive after 30 years. But for me it doesn't really matter anymore. But if you're used to it, actually it's quite hard to give up. So you are actually doing a real act of renunciation by giving that up. Yeah? And so see if you can use that skillfully, because that is kind of the trick here, to use it skillfully. When undergoing certain observances, unskillful qualities grow while skillful qualities decline. I say you should not undertake those observances. When undertaking certain observances, unskillful qualities decline while skillful qualities grow. I say you should undertake those observances. Yeah, like what, for example? What do we mean by observances here? And one thing that we do in Buddhism very often, we do a lot of bowing. Yeah, and I say that bowing is something that is very skillful. Yeah, or feel what it does to you rather than saying it is skillful or unskillful. See what the bowing does to you. Some people, when they bow, they get negative thoughts because they feel oppressed by it. If you feel the bowing is oppressive, don't bow. Yeah, no need to bow. You don't have to bow at all. But if you learn how to bow because you respect the Buddha, the Dhamma, and you respect the qualities that lie behind that, then you grow in good qualities merely by the act of bowing because you are respecting those qualities. So bowing is actually very powerful, and I would recommend you to bow every day in your home when you go back. If you have a little Buddha statue in your home, bow down, because that Buddha statue will remind you of the Dhamma. And if you bow down to that in the morning before you do your chores for the day, or you go to work, or you do whatever, yeah, you're setting yourself up in a beautiful way for that day. You're reminding yourself of the qualities really worth pursuing in life. So bowing done rightly can be very beautiful. That is an example of using observances in a good way. Yeah, and many other things can also be observances of various kinds, like wearing white, for example. That some that traditionally people do, or shaving your head. Some people do that. All kind of things can be good or bad depending on how you use it. Certain efforts, unskillful qualities grow while skillful qualities decline. I say you shouldn't try those efforts. When trying certain efforts, unskillful qualities decline while skillful qualities grow. I say you should try those efforts. Yeah, so those efforts means that you You come into the hall, you come to the meditation retreats at Jhana Grove, you listen to Dhamma talks, you try when you see kind of anger in your mind, you see if there's another way of looking at things. These are kind of little efforts that you do that make skillful qualities grow. When giving up certain things, skillful qualities grow while skillful qualities decline. I say that you shouldn't give up those things. When giving up certain things, unskillful qualities decline while skillful qualities grow. I say you should give up those things. So don't give up the 5 precepts. That's the wrong kind of things to give up. Then you're heading in the wrong way. But other things you should give up are the breaking of the 5 precepts. Give up that. That's kind of the right way. You get the idea here, and the whole path really works like that. When being liberated with certain kinds of freedom, unskillful qualities grow while skillful qualities decline. I say you should not be liberated with those kinds of freedom. When being liberated with certain kinds of freedom, unskillful qualities decline while skillful qualities grow. I say you should be liberated with those kinds of freedom. After Vajramahita had been educated, encouraged, fired up and inspired with the Dhamma talk by the Buddha, he got up from his seat, bowed and respectfully circled the Buddha before leaving. Then, not long after Vajramahita had left, the Buddha addressed the mendicants. Mendicants, even a mendicant who for a long time has had little dust in their eyes in this teaching and training will legitimately and completely refute those wonders of other religions, would do that, just as the householder Vajramahita did. So it is interesting, sometimes you have little discussions with other people of other religions, other teachings, and then it is useful to know how, the Dhamma differs from their teachings. And if you have a discussion, you can kind of stand your ground and you can tell it from the Buddhist perspective. And if you do that in a good way, then people sometimes listen, sometimes they don't, it depends on the person, but then there is a chance that things may happen. And sometimes in the suttas you find after these discussions that people think, oh, that's very interesting, and they decide to go forth. They decide to become monastics, or they become even stream enterers sometimes. Really amazing things happen there. But it all depends on teaching the Dhamma in the right kind of way, presenting it in a cool way. Not because you want to convert the other person, but because you have compassion on them and you want to help them. That is always the right way. Okay, everyone, that is all for now. So we will come back again at, 7 o'clock? 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock this evening. We'll see you back again.